Welcome back. We're continuing our talk on Metaballs, and today we're going to look at attaching event handlers to our little Metaball blobs to see if we can work on manipulating them at runtime. So, did not review the blob object itself last time. So the Metaball, let's see, from the top. First, you should see what we're looking at. So here's the project. It's randomly creating a set of 10 balls and then calculating a sample field that is used to generate that green outline. And this is represented by a list of these blobs. The blob list is later recalculated to create the sample field. The blob object itself is basically just a representation of a circle. We have a position and a radius, and to get it moving around the screen, we also give it a velocity, which is kind of randomized. Randomized given a speed. We can set the color. That color represents the actual color of the circle inside of the Metaball blob. And we're able to do some math to see its bounce, left, right, top, bottom, width, height. And rendering it, in this case, I don't like having the velocity calculation in the render method, but the render method conveniently has access to the rendering context, and the update method does not. But this allows us to bounce around the screen when the ball reaches the edge of the screen. Which you can see if you're running it. Wait for it. Here it comes. And there, they bounce. So what we want to do next is attach event handlers. The state manager itself, the events start from the OpenTK framework, and they get bubbled up through the game state, which gives access to, so you have render, update, when you're entering and leaving the state, key down, key up, mouse down, mouse up, mouse move, mouse wheel, and text input, which is also represented by the iEventHandler interface. Gives all this stuff. And I did some magic on the mouse move event to basically, it translates the actual mouse coordinates into our virtual display coordinates. So it works. What we want to do next, though, is allow our blobs to collect events. So this is the next branch, which is up on GitHub, feature/o02-events. And what the difference is here, first one, I moved there was a static method on the blob for creating a random blob, moved that to a blob factory, which will help us out a lot later. And I really don't like models being able to factory generate themselves. I don't like having factory methods on the instant data model instances. It doesn't feel clean. So we have a blob factory that will plop a blob somewhere around the screen, and the blob itself can toggle whether or not we're going to draw the circle, which is it's basically a debug circle. So not really any other changes here. We've got the Metaball settings object, which is migrating up from the app settings. We've added Metaballs section here, moved all the constants that were defined in that static class in the last video into the app settings, so we can toggle these things on and off. That's the blob factory, and we have we've moved the blob list into these blob collections. We have a basic blob collection, takes a settings object, the list of blobs, and the the sample field, and it manages all the variables related to that for us. We've got some collection management to add and remove a blob, to clear all the blobs, rendering all the blobs, move the rendering of line cases into the blob collection itself. This is basically unchanged. After we've rendered the sample field, we render the circles, the debug circles on top of that, update the blobs, and then we have some helper methods for doing the math, for calculating the sample field. And basically all that was moved out of the main state into its own class. Okay. And on top of that, so we're able to create an event blob collection which inherits from a blob collection of event blobs. So we have a basic blob, which I showed you at the start of this video. An event blob can also manage some things to do with events. Whether or not it has the mouse hover and the mouse focus, like whether or not the mouse hovering over the blob versus you just clicked on the blob and now it is the focus of attention. Got colors for the focus and hover, and then defining the actual color based off of the current state of the blob. Are you active? Like basically, if the blob has the mouse focus, we need it to stop moving. So velocity, position calculations will stop, and we can acquire and lose the mouse focus. The event blob collection is a collection of event blobs. And this is where we bubble up the events I was just showing you: mouse move, mouse down, mouse up, and mouse wheel. The mouse wheel, if you're hovering over a blob, this will adjust the radius by the offset defined in the mouse wheel, by the mouse wheel. And then we have the mouse up and mouse down. Mouse down just sets the focus blob and defines the drag start position, so you can move the blob around when you move the mouse. Mouse up similarly, like if there's currently focused blob, it will lose the focus. And then also if you right click on the blob, it will delete it from the collection. So, and then mouse move itself, if it's a little bit more complicated, but if there's currently a focused object, we move that object. We check the mouse hover based off the new mouse position, and then we allow the first blob that, well, actually the way this is written, it's like the last blob that contains the mouse cursor is going to take the mouse hover. And that bubbles up to the main state. So, main state, creating our blob collection. The app settings, basically application-specific app settings, inherit from the library's app settings and then adds a new app settings section for our Metaballs settings. And that gets injected by the dependency injection container. Oh, where's the program? I'm going to clean this up soon. This is way too much bootstrapping for these demos I've been building. But cleaned it up a little here. Configure services, instead of hard coding the app settings and main state, it's thrown in as template arguments. Which come in here, Metaballs app settings instead of app settings, and then throwing in the main state as that's where we're starting. But we'll keep cleaning that up in future videos. And then, in the main state, on load, basically, we're still using that factory method to create the blob, but then the event blob is able to take a vanilla blob as a constructor parameter and then duplicate it. Now that blob is an event blob. I don't know. I'm not entirely satisfied with the structure. I feel like I wish there was a way to take an existing blob instance and somehow attach an event handler to it instead of wrapping it. Or maybe I need to wrap it instead of copying all the parameters over. I don't know. I'm going to keep thinking through that. Actually, like, it might actually make a lot more sense. Use something like have an inner blob here, and then have an iBlob interface at this. That will allow it to proxy the inner blob methods, and then add some event handlers on top of that. And then it might be possible to attach an event blob to an existing blob, and then you can like attach and detach the event handlers. But I need to keep thinking about it. Going back to the main state. On render, draw grid is the same. The blob collection takes care of rendering our whole sample field and blobs and updating everything. And then in our event handlers, mouse wheel, mouse up, mouse down, mouse move, we are giving our event blob collection a chance to handle that event first. And if it does, we return true right away. Otherwise, the event moves on. So, let's take a look. Oh, another thing. I kind of wish I'd placed this inside of the event blob collection, but a mouse down event, blob collection gets a chance at it first. Otherwise, create a new blob wherever you click the mouse. Kind of wish I'd placed that inside of the event blob collection. I might change that later. I'm not dealing with it right now. If you run this example, then we have this. And you can see, hovering over a circle will highlight that circle. So that's good. If we click, it should turn red and stop moving. Like so. And then you can take this anywhere you want. It's kind of fun watching the outline grow and shrink and morph. And hover and mouse wheel will grow and shrink the blobs. Right click will delete. There you go. So we have a start on something. One thing that's kind of neat that I would like to capture later, it's like we have an outline here. If we can have some sort of event handler that can detect when the mouse enters the blob region, we can make some interesting shaped UI elements, like blobby buttons or something. That would be kind of a fun project. But we're not quite there yet. There's a couple more things we need to do before that point. The next thing we're going to tackle with our blobs is a performance and flood fill, which I'm going to tackle both of those in the next video. So, thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon.